And welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for my Gameweek 21 team selection video where I'll be showing you what transfers I'm going to be making, how we're going to deal with all of this stuff that is coming up, injuries, players going off to international competitions and double game weeks coming up. How are we going to navigate it? I'll talk you through it today. If you enjoy this one, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here. Let's first of all have a look at my Gameweek 20 scores. So, admittedly, my Game Week 20 scores were not quite as much as maybe I would hoped. Like, 84 points is not bad. Technically, I got a green arrow, but it's a case of what could have been. Certainly before the Liverpool game and the West Ham game with Salah scoring big points and Areola scoring big points, I was actually up to the 100k mark. So, it really was that much of a swing. The fact that, obviously, I didn't captain Salah, and obviously, I didn't have an Areola in my team or even a Dubravka starting. I think a lot of people had Areola or Dubravka, which would have made a difference for points, and that Salah captaincy as well. So these things swing, you know, sometimes these swings are not going to go in your favour, sometimes they are. On this occasion, those two main key points, which I think a lot of people do have that situation where they have Areola Dubravka, they have Salah captain. That is the difference between 84 points and, you know, 100 points. So it's just one of those things. On another game week, it's going to be a very different situation. But there were a lot of performers in my team. In fairness, my captain Alvarez did at least get on the score sheet. Cole Palmer, obviously a great game week for him, and many other returns in the attacking areas. But the defense, my oh my, a real significant difference between the attack and the defense this game. But it's still a green arrow, and I think I'm actually in a very good position moving forward because I do actually have 2 free transfers and a good idea of what I'd like to do with them. So let's move on to that next. So, like I say, 2 free transfers. We've still got 7.1 million in the bank. I've made sure I've had plenty of money in the bank ready to get Haaland back in. Thought that would have happened sooner than it has done, but yeah, obviously Haaland's still not quite back on the menu, but we can still do some moves here anyway. Let's start off in goal with Dubravka, and I think I'm going to start with Dubravka this game week. Last week, maybe made the mistake of starting with Turner, but who was to tell that Dubravka would get a penalty save? Quite a strange one, that one, but it's just one of those things. I don't have Areola. It would have been nice to have him, but even Areola, I feel like West Ham are conceding chances at the moment and maybe been a little bit fortunate to get away with clean sheets recently. So I still would I wish I had Areola, don't get me wrong. But Dubravka, is he going to be able to maybe come up with a few saves against Man City? We assume that Man City are going to take shots in this game. And I think save points is the best I can hope for in between Dubravka against City and Turner against Brentford. Just going to roll with a player I think is most likely to get save points. And you never know. Newcastle could turn it around finally this game. We know they're a very good team. But we, more importantly, like I said, we know Dubravka is making plenty of saves at the moment. So I think there is some optimism there. But if I'm honest, not expecting too much. Into defence, we've got Pedro Porro. He's against Manchester United. Obviously, he scored in the Cup. His kind of goal-scoring threat and his assist potential has been phenomenal, hasn't it? It really has been good. And Manchester United, a team we're still not totally convinced by. So can Spurs go there and get a result? Maybe. A very good chance of that happening. And will Pedro Porro be available for attacking returns? Yes. Clean sheets, on the other hand, you never really expect them with Spurs. But really, these days, we own a lot of defenders for attacking returns anyway, because clean sheets are just a myth. Gabriel next, on the other hand. And although Arsenal have been poor recently, I do hope they can return to form. The underlying numbers have been there, of course, and they've got a couple of weeks rest to just kind of restart, get back to their title challenge if they can. And that's hopefully going to start with a couple of clean sheets against Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest. It's going to be really, really important that they do that. A home game against Crystal Palace, who are missing some key players at the moment, I think could be really, really nice for Gabriel. So it's definitely a player who has the potential of a clean sheet this week, but as always, you never know, you never expect a clean sheet anymore, and you just kind of got to wait and hope. But maybe an attacking return is a possibility as well. Who knows? And finally, in defence, we've got Malo Gusto. He plays against Fulham at home. Another team, you know, when I was looking through the odds of the best chances of clean sheets this game week, we were seeing the likes of Arsenal and Chelsea on top as the teams most likely to keep a clean sheet. Gusto has found himself as the main starting right back for Chelsea. He's been playing pretty well in that position. Very, very attacking in that position as well, which is something we definitely like about Gusto going forward, don't we? Fulham at home is a good game. It's a game where Chelsea definitely will be eyeing up a clean sheet, but again, attacking potential, attacking returns are always a possibility when you are picking these kind of defenders who do play very far up the pitch and like to get involved in those attacks. And 4.2 million, who says no? So I'm glad I have this guy in my team, if nothing else. Into midfield, I've got Heung-min Son in here at the moment. Obviously, he is away at the Asian Cup, which is a bit of a problem. And I think we all kind of accept we're going to have to sell one of Son or Salah. I haven't made my mind up which one it's going to be yet, but I have a good idea. Son is the one at the moment, so he's going to just be in here for a second before we talk about some transfers. Next up, Saka. A lot of people been very, very doubtful about Saka. I know everyone's been very dramatic about it as well. You've got to remember that Saka, you know, he was in the attacking returns last game week, and he's a player who is constantly in and around the dangerous areas. In fact, even though his attacking returns have dried up a little bit compared to earlier on in the season, his attacking numbers are actually much better than they were before. They're up a lot. So he's definitely a player who's constantly in dangerous areas. And like I say, we would hope that Arsenal are going to use this period off to recoup and maybe go again back on their title challenge. So Crystal Palace at home could be a really nice fixture for Saka. I do still like Saka, still think he's definitely got a part to play in our FPL teams, and definitely nowhere near a priority sell at the moment with all of the other problems we have at the moment. Next up, Brennan Johnson, a player who is like, he's okay. He's fine. 5.8 million, you can only expect a certain amount. I mean, he's no Cole Palmer. Like, Cole Palmer is a freak at that 5.7, 5.8 million bracket. Johnson, on the other hand, is just a, you know, pretty solid option at his price. I mean, he's fine. He has been getting a decent amount of kind of positions in the right areas. I think he is going to be pretty much nailed on until Son returns at least. So I'm happy with Johnson to a degree. He's an okay pick, but look, he's just one of those players, like, he's an enabler. He's there to be cheap. I could have gone more expensive if I didn't want to hold the Haaland money, but that's a thing in the past. I got to just move on from that. Finally, in midfield, we've got Palmer, who is a player I am very confident in. He obviously did very well against Luton last game week. In the Cup against Middlesbrough, he actually played as a central striker for a lot of that game, and he looks really good, as in the right areas. He had a lot of big chances to score, always the guy, the final man taking the shot, which is really nice to see. He didn't get any attacking returns, and he did miss quite a big sitter in that game, but he certainly showed some positive signs that he is going to continue to be Chelsea's primary attacking outlet at the moment. So at 5.7 million, like, he is a must-own player at this point. I think you guys know this by this point. Palmer, you got to have him in your team, and I'm very happy to own him against this depleted Fulham side who are missing a couple of players at the moment as well. So yeah, let's see what can happen there. No Iwobi, no Bassi. These players obviously off to AFCON, so yeah, let's see what Chelsea can do. I think they are in a better position than they were perhaps a few weeks ago. Better form, looking with some positive signs there, and Palmer and Gusto are both very much part of that. Up front, we have got Ollie Watkins, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Safe, whatever you want to call him. Everton up next. Everton dipping in form a little bit at the moment, now that they've kind of gotten themselves away from that relegation battle. I swear, Everton, they get, and specifically Sean Dyche, he gets more powerful the closer he is to the relegation zone. And when he finds himself out of the relegation zone, well, suddenly things look a little bit better for his teams, and they don't need to get results anymore. Is that real? I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up, but it just seems like the closer Everton, Sean Dyche is to the bottom of the table, the better he does. But now they're away from it a little bit, I don't think they have been as good over the last few game weeks. But Watkins is definitely going to have some opportunities here. Potential captain option, I guess, as well. But let's move on to Julian Alvarez, who I think is most likely going to start this game week. Reasonably confident about that one, but not 100%. Never can be 100% with these Man City players. But yeah, what should be said about Newcastle is that they do concede a lot of their chances through central areas. And if Alvarez is playing as the central striker, that is going to mean he is going to be a big pick there. Also, Alvarez, we know he's a set piece taker. If Haaland's not playing, he's going to be a penalty taker as well, and the central striker for, you know, one of the best attacks in world football over the last however many years. It's just a no-brainer that Alvarez is going to be a great pick, although I am worried in the future De Bruyne and Haaland are going to be coming back at some point in the near future, and that is going to put Alvarez's minutes potential in serious jeopardy. I think we're safe in game week 21, but long-term, not so much. And finally, we've got Mubama. I've got Mubama currently starting. Now, what should be said about Mubama is that Bowen is probably going to be injured. Danny Ings looks like he is actually going to be sold. There's no Antonio. There is no, Paqueta. There's no Kudus. Who's going to be playing as the central striker for West Ham? Well, Mubama was the man substituted on for Paqueta in the cup game this week, early on in the game. So does that mean Mubama is kind of next in line to be the starting central striker for West Ham against Sheffield United? Well, maybe, but at the same time, am I fully convinced by this? The lack of creativity in this West Ham team. Mubama, yes, he's a very promising young talent, but is he ready to score a bunch of goals in the Premier League? Well, so far, no, even if it is a game against Sheffield United. So, is he really a player I want to start? I mean, in an emergency situation, I think I would be okay with playing him this week, but in general, probably not. Onto the bench, guys. We've got Turner against Brentford. We mentioned him earlier. Taylor is against Luton. Haven't got an update at time of recording, so I don't know if he's going to be available or not. But yeah, maybe he can come in and deputise if he needs to. I don't think I'm really going to need him, to be honest, with those 2 free transfers. We've got Trippier against Man City. Am I really looking to double up on the Newcastle defence against Man City? Hell no. And Salah off at AFCON at the moment, so that is obviously a problem as well. So, looking through my team, I would say with 2 free transfers and only my starting players, only Son and Salah are missing. And I knew that they were going to be missing anyway. I've got no Trent Alexander-Arnold, I've got no Bowen, I've got no other players going off to AFCON and Asian Cup. So I am kind of glad I planned around the AFCON and the Asia Cup very well. I'm glad I held my transfers. And I do think I am in a good situation right now, which is why, despite last week being a bit meh, I am feeling a little bit more optimistic this week, because I think I'm in a strong position, and there's particular moves that I think I'm able to make this week that perhaps are not available to other managers as well. So I'm going to talk about that, but not expecting to take a -4. I think we're good to go this week. We've got to make some moves though. And first of all, we've got to figure out which players would I be willing to sacrifice. So I would say, starting off, both of my goalkeepers I would be willing to sacrifice. It's just a case of whether I could find an adequate replacement, and I don't really think I can. There's no goalkeepers that stand out a lot at the moment, so I probably am just looking to stick with what I've got in terms of goalkeepers. It's probably not going to get too many points, but then who is? In midfield, obviously we've got Son and Salah. Both of those players can easily be sacrificed at the moment because of their absence at their respective international tournaments. Johnson would be willing to sacrifice him. He's just the easiest of my other midfielders to sacrifice, but he's not going to be a priority move, is he? And Mubama, I think there's other forwards I could genuinely upgrade Mubama to right now. There's a lot of forwards I like at the moment, and I think that might be a direction I quite like to go in. Aside from that, Taylor on the bench, could maybe sell him. Trippier on the bench, could maybe sell him as well if I wanted to free up some budget potentially. There is a defender I've got my eye on, so let's roll through the players that I'd like to bring in, and then we can try and work out what transfer moves might work for me. So like I said, there's no goalkeepers I'm really looking at the moment, but in defence, Pervis Estupiñán is a player I've got a very keen eye on. The fixtures look amazing, starting with Wolves, and I do think Estupiñán is going to be a player who can not only get clean sheets, and I think people have downplayed Brighton's clean sheet ability. Their defensive numbers are actually not that bad, and I think they can improve, and probably will improve going forward, but it's the attacking returns you really want an Estupiñán for, really. We know from the beginning of the season how potent this guy is. He's already got a couple of attacking returns since his return from injury. This guy is the real deal. We know that. He's going to be a really, really good defender for you guys to go for if you're looking to replace someone that you've already got. Kyle Walker, little shout out to him as well, because it does look like Man City are going to have a double game week in game week 25. So I've got one eye on that one. That will be against Chelsea and against Brentford. So it's not such a bad double game week, but is it a double game week we'd want a defender for? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Particularly Man City have not been as reliable for those clean sheets. In midfield, like I say, double game weeks for the likes of Foden, so he's definitely got to be on the menu. But Diogo Jota is likely to have a double game week in game week 25 as well, if Liverpool do progress to the League Cup final. And after that victory against Fulham last night, that's looking pretty likely as well. So Diogo Jota, Luis Diaz, we're looking here at midfielders who are likely to have double game weeks in game week 25. Now, for all of these midfielders, there is a rotation risk. And looking through a lot of midfielders at the moment, there's no one player that stands out. People like different players for different reasons. You could add Richarlison or Pascal Gross to this list potentially, as well as players I could consider bringing in. But there's not one player who looks like the answer, the correct answer. There really isn't. I think there is different options. But Foden and Diogo Jota are by far my favourites at this present moment. I think I will end up on one of those two guys. As for forwards, again, there's actually quite a few I like. Now, Solanke is a player I'd like to get in eventually. Don't have him yet. Don't ask me how. Believe me, I've suffered a lot not owning Solanke. Thankfully, Game Week 20 was not one of those weeks, so I came out the right end of the Solanke swing last week, which I've got to be grateful for because he looked very good against Spurs. But there's two other forwards who are quite differential at the moment that I really like the look of, and that's Toney and João Pedro. Both of these look like they could have some real potential moving forward. Toney, obviously, coming back from injury, he is going to have something to prove for sure. And he's got fixtures against Forest and Spurs in the next two, which I do like the look of. João Pedro, we spoke about Brighton's amazing fixtures. Well, João Pedro, the problem with him has always been rotation, because we know whenever he plays, he has been looking good. He looks like he's going to create. He looks like he's going to score. He's a player on penalties as well. But with so many players missing for Brighton, particularly Mittelmer in that left wing position, João Pedro, his minutes potential has soared. And that's after a lot of consecutive starts recently. And obviously, he scored 2 goals and got an assist against Spurs a couple of weeks ago. In the Cup, he scored 2 goals against Stoke as well. He's a man in form and a man that pretty much has to play at the moment. So in general, João Pedro at 5.4 million might be a gift that few people will be able to go to. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to struggle to get in a forward, particularly if you've got to save a slot, if you like, for Erling Haaland. You know, who do you sacrifice for these players? And there isn't really an answer there. So for me, I think I'm in a good situation where I can go for the likes of Toney and João Pedro, but let's show you how I can do that. So I've got a few options today, guys. First of all, to sell Son. That will involve selling Son and Mubama, and that will be upgrading Mubama to João Pedro, and I will be bringing in Foden or Diogo Jota for that midfield slot, like I kind of mentioned earlier. Of course, that does still keep a lot of money in the bank, but the thing is, Erling Haaland, he is back in training today, so we really do, at this point, with Man City, you know, their Game Week 22 fixture is in, like, what, 3 weeks' time, pretty much. So we really do need to think about making sure we do have money in the bank ready to go for Haaland immediately, or have 2 transfers maybe, or risk taking a -4 next week. It's not really something I'd like to do. So I would like to keep money in the bank, and therefore, if I do go for Son as my sell, obviously Son is not as expensive as Salah. It means that that I need to go for João Pedro, because if I sell Salah, I'll have a little bit more money in the bank, so I can do Toney instead of João Pedro for that, instead of for that Mubama switch. So it's a case of Son, sell and go for João Pedro, or sell Salah and go for Toney, and those are really my 2 options here. And the way I'm leaning at the moment, if you asked me a couple of days ago, I would probably say I'll sell Salah, free up the most amount of money, get the most expensive player in a return. But things have changed, and I've been looking into this a lot, and I'm looking through who is likely to come back from their international tournament first. Is it going to be Son or Salah? And the overwhelming odds suggest it's going to be Salah. Now, South Korea are in the top 2 teams in Asia. You know, them and Japan, they are the 2 most likely winners. Son is expected to go all the way into the final. Now, Egypt, however, not as rated as a team in the AFCON tournament, and they're actually ranked as the 5th best team. They've got the 5th best chance of winning according to bookies odds, which suggests that maybe they get eliminated in the quarterfinals, potentially even the round of 16 if things don't go their way in the group. They've got Ghana in their group, so you never know. Ghana could pip them to the top spot. Egypt could have a really tough fixture in the round of 16, and suddenly they're out immediately, and Salah is back in Game Week 23, which could be incredible. So Son, very unlikely to be back until Game Week 25. Salah could actually be back in Game Week 23 or 24. So if I'm holding one of these guys, Salah's more likely to come back sooner. One more factor with regards to Salah is that, we spoke about this briefly before, double game week in Game Week 25. If Salah is back in Game Week 23, and Liverpool get a double game week in 25, Salah suddenly becomes a must-keep player. Like, there's no point selling him and bringing him back in. Too many transfers. There's too many other problems to deal with right now. We're going to be taking -4s, -8s, -12s over this short period of time if we sell Salah and we have to get him back so soon. So, can I get ahead of the game? Can I be 1 or 2 or 3 transfers ahead of my oppositions by actually keeping Salah? The only sacrifice I would have to make in order to have all of these advantages that Salah could potentially bring is to go for João Pedro instead of Tony. And I don't mind doing that at all. Now, finally, there's the sensible move. And that's going to be Son and Trippier to, like I say, Foden or Diogo Jota and Purvis and Stupinian. And that would involve moving to a 4-4-2 formation. And I think that's what probably the template is. I think that's what most content creators will be doing. I think that's what a lot of the top managers will be doing. But a lot of the top managers have Solanke. So they don't have that option. They already are in the 3-4-3 formation. Unlike me, I'm in a 3-5-2 at the moment. I think I have that flexibility. And I think I have the bravery as well to maybe stick with Salah, where I think probably to a lot of people, you know, player goes off to international tournament, super expensive, must sell that player without really looking into some of the more intricate details. And these are the kind of edges I am looking to get. I'm not in a great rank at the moment. I'd like to improve it, and I'd like to try and find some edges, take some risks, take some punts that are sensible and have a very clear potential reward at the end of the tunnel. And that's what I think I'm going to do this game week. So this sensible, boring move, I think that's going to work for a lot of people, but potentially not for me. So as you probably gathered from everything I just said, the move for me is going to be removing Son and Mubama, replacing them with Diogo Jota and João Pedro. Now, I'll put Jota in for now, but again, I have to be totally honest, by deadline, this could easily be Foden, because one thing that's good about Foden is that Liverpool are likely to blank in maybe game week 26, and Foden is not going to blank then. So there is a small advantage to Foden. I think Diogo Jota has higher points potential, but is maybe a little bit more risky. He's a risky pick. That's usually my kind of style of play. Foden is maybe a little bit safer there. So, you know, you could go either way, Diogo Jota or Foden. Both great picks, like them both. But we've got Jota in for now. That could change. So this would be what my team would look like. We've got a 3-4-3 formation. I think this looks very strong for this game week, and it allows me to keep money in the bank to do the upgrade from Alvarez to Haaland, because it's going to happen at the same time. As soon as Haaland comes back, Alvarez is going to be the super risky player. So Alvarez to Haaland next game week looks on straight away, and my team is in great shape. I planned well. We've got double game week players, and we can plan for even more of them as well, which I'm going to show you in a minute. On captaincy, I'm currently on Palmer captain and Saka vice captain, but I could easily switch those two around. But those two are the standouts for me, Palmer and Saka. But at the moment, maybe I've got, because I'm an Arsenal fan, and I'm usually quite a pessimistic Arsenal fan, I am currently on Palmer rather than Saka. But like I say, that could change by deadline. Saka's numbers are very nice at the moment, and Palmer, I guess there's a small chance that he could see reduced minutes with that crucial League Cup semi-final against Middlesbrough around the corner, Palmer having played so many minutes recently. But I think he's going to play, to be honest, but I guess we'll see. Palmer is pretty much nailed at this point, isn't he? So both players on penalties, which we like, both players on set pieces, which we like, both great captains for this week, currently edging towards Palmer. Now, let me show you my plan going forward, because this is really important to for what the trying to transfers and what I'm planning at the moment. It's really important we show you where we're going with this. So I'm on the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. This is an amazing tool for planning future game weeks, particularly when we're looking at double and blank game weeks and chip planning as well. Really important that you are getting use of these tools to plan ahead. That's exactly what I've been doing. I'm going to show you the plan right now. For me, if you want to check this out, of course, link in the description. You can have a look at this tool for free. So this would be my Game Week 21 team, as we've just had a look at. Interestingly, Trippier predicted more points than the likes of Pedro Porro, as is Taylor. But hey, I think I will stick with what I've got. Moving on to Game Week 22, what we'll do is a very simple switch. It'll be Alvarez out and Haaland in, as we previously mentioned. Haaland, of course, expected to be back this game week, which is very, very nice indeed. And the Game Week 22 team looks pretty strong, doesn't it? Suddenly we're looking very nice, and we're getting a really high team rating with lots of really strong players. Happy with everyone other than maybe Trippier against Aston Villa, and obviously the goalkeeper, who knows. Trippier against Aston Villa is maybe the one weakness in this team. I think everything else looks reasonably good, to be honest. Moving on to then to Game Week 23, we'll have another free transfer to use at this point, but I don't think we'll need it. Now, we could play Salah this game week. If Salah is back, we'd probably sub him in for Brennan Johnson. And remember, guys, Diogo Jota could be either Jota or it could be Foden in this scenario. But I've just got Jota in for the sake of an example. So yeah, Salah could potentially come in for Johnson or Diogo Jota or Crystal Palace or anything like that. We'd bench Gabriel against Liverpool, which is pretty nice. We've got good fixtures for Newcastle at this point, so it'll be nice to have Trippier finally. So happy to hold him because I think he'll be fine. So no transfer really needing to be used for Game Week 23. Game Week 24. We'll have Salah back into the team pretty likely by this point. Johnson will be on the bench, I think, at this moment. And that's against Burnley, so it's a nice fixture for Salah as well. So it would be nice to be ahead of the game there, having Salah for Game Week 24 if he is back. And the odds suggest that he probably will be back in Game Week 24 rather than Game Week 25. And moving on to Game Week 25, we'll actually have technically like a few transfers to use at this point. And this is the double game week. So this is where Liverpool and Brentford and Man City and Luton as well will have a double game weeks this week, which is interesting. So at this point, I think the key will be to get Trent Alexander-Arnold back into the team because he'll hopefully be back and fit and available by this point. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, hopefully at this point, we'll have 2 free transfers to do something about it. So maybe we downgrade Johnson. If we downgrade Johnson to like a 4.5 million midfielder, let's just go for a super cheap guy just as an example. Hey, maybe we go for Garnacho even. So let's throw in Garnacho there. Will that leave us enough money to upgrade Trippier? Maybe not quite. Okay, so maybe not Garnacho. Let's just go for the cheapest midfielder we can find here. So is there a 4.2? Yeah, let's just throw in Chukwuemeka as an example. Of course, there'll probably be other transfers at this point, or we can, maybe consider downgrading Saka or Watkins. But this would allow us to get Alexander-Arnold in, and he obviously might have even dropped in price by this point as well, which would be pretty nice. And that would leave me with triple Liverpool against with a double game week, and have Haaland with a double game week. So a lot of players with double game weeks. Jota could obviously be Foden as well. Yeah, so with just those transfers, we could suddenly have 4 double game week players. And I think we could probably get 1 more in as well using the additional transfer we do. So the plan looks good. The plan looks solid. I'm happy with it, generally speaking. And there's probably going to be little tweaks as we get closer and closer to Game Week 25, but it's nice to go in that sort of direction. I'm eyeing up a wildcard in Game Week 30 at the moment, but again, we're going to get more information between Game Week 21 and Game Week 22, where we can maybe make some more solid chip plans and strategies. And of course, we will be making videos covering double game weeks, blank game weeks, and chip strategies as well. So yeah, looking forward to sharing that information with you guys next week. So yeah, that's the plan that I'm going with at the moment. I think it's pretty strong. I think it's pretty solid. I think it's a little bit different to what a lot of other people will probably be doing at the moment as well, which is certainly something that I'm always interested in, trying to go down a slightly different route and see if I can get an advantage by going in that slightly different route and just gaining the edge in FPL, because that's what it's all about, right? Thanks so much for watching this video today, guys. I know it was a bit of a long one, but hopefully having that extra information as to why I'm doing a lot of things I'm doing at the moment, hopefully it made a lot of sense and hopefully helped me bounce back as well in this season, and just, give a little bit of logic and maybe show you guys that I haven't lost my touch quite yet. I think I've got it back. I hope I've got it back. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here. Plenty of other FPL videos on the channel for Game Week 21. If you want to check them out, please do, just here. Make sure you check out Fantasy Football Hub if you want to check out that tool, link in the description, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.